Itch it up, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Good evening, good afternoon if you're out there on the West Coast. This is Maestro Amilcar, joined by David. Special shout out to everybody across the Leave It in the Ring Radio Network, D-Style Boxing, G-Funky, The Shoe Shine. Let's go, David. How's it going?
I'm going good, man. How you doing? How's your day going over there in the East Coast?
Dealing with a lot of stuff, but glad to be here. Glad to be talking boxing.
Yeah, same here. It's nice and sunny over here in Northern California. But as always, we got a lot of stuff to hand wrap here on Leave the Ring. Don't forget to jab the like button, uppercut the subscription, and hit that notification bell. Don't leave it up to the judges to let you know when we're on live here on Amilcar's channel. Hopefully we can get back on the Leave the Ring channel. I think my ban is lifted today. Matter of fact, Amilcar. I don't know.
All right.
If you haven't had a chance to go and look at the Solar Plex Zone segments, episode 3 is out. Check that out. It's everybody's shows that are compiled into one whole segment between 30 to 45 minutes. We put a little bit of everybody's show that's on the Leave the Ring rotation. Also, some of the best interviews that we've conducted all across the board from everybody from the whole Leave the Ring rotation. So if you haven't had a chance, go to the Leave the Ring channel, the main channel, and check out the Solar Plex Zone. Okay, we got nothing better to do on a Sunday. A barbecue, pop open the beer, and listen to all the topics and interviews on there.
Yeah, again, shout out to everybody here on the Leave It in the Ring Radio Network. D-Style's up on there, G-Funky's up there, HCP Uncensored, The Shoe Shine. And obviously I'm there with my Throwout Boxing, which I'm now doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Get over to the channel, check out the description box, like, subscribe, and all of those good things. Now, David, we had a pretty good episode of the Leave It in the Ring Roundtable last Thursday on D-Style Boxing's channel. And we kind of got into a little bit in terms of our thoughts Thursday about some of these fights that were taking place this weekend. I'd like to start off by discussing the fight that took place out there in England with the son of the Dark Destroyer, Nigel Benn. A lot of people weren't sure exactly where he was at, talent-wise, exactly where he was at in terms of his competition level. He took on a rough and rugged guy in Samuel Vargas, whose claim name has been taking elite guys rounds. Didn't go many rounds, didn't go even a full round. What were your thoughts on that fight, Dave?
I mean, what are my full thoughts about that fight? I mean, like you said, our expectation was that Samuel Vargas was going to show us what was lacking and what were the goods of Conor Benn, right? I didn't get a whole lot answered. I mean, look, Conor Benn went out there. He looked sharp. He looked on point. He looked strong. He looked fast. But it was short-lived. So either Samuel Vargas got old overnight, or he got caught cold, or Conor Benn is just that good. The only thing I would hope and want to see now from Conor Benn is to see him fight really soon, not 6 months from now, not next year. What about scheduling him 2 months from right now? Get him in there again. Let's see if what we saw is the real deal, because it's really hard to make an assessment here, Amilcar, to say how good he is, because he looks spectacular, but it was just so good. It didn't leave us much or any room to have any more thought than just to go, wow, okay, this is what we got.
I felt that Vargas was going to take this kid rounds. I spoke to the fact that Vargas has had a tough road, being kind of a road warrior, having to go places, taking on fights at the last minute. Where he's from, boxing isn't very big, so he's never had like that hometown push or anything like that. So the fact that he's gone multiple rounds with top level guys in the past made me think that he was going to take this kid a lot further than he did. Honestly, Dave, I felt the stoppage was a bit premature. But at the same,
I could see that. Yeah.
The same time, you can justify it as a proper stoppage because he wasn't throwing back.
I was going to say that he wasn't throwing back. He was getting clipped. Let's be honest. Some of the shots were landing on the gloves of Vargas, but a lot of those shots were really clean and solid and heavy. And from the standpoint of the ref, you're seeing a guy that almost looked like he was the brink of being put to sleep in really nasty way. So I think the ref did a right job. I don't think it was premature. I think it was because of no response coming from Vargas. And, to me, it was like he was trying to weather this storm, but this storm was just kept coming with waves and waves and waves. And it eventually was going to take down that pier and house down, the way Conor was throwing those punches, man.
Well, the thing is, after the fight, I listened to an interview with Vargas where he was essentially saying, I don't know why I did this. I don't know why I came over here. I wasn't hurt. The referee shouldn't have stopped the fight. We were just feeling each other out. And I'm like, bro, if you think it repeatedly in the face is feeling the other guy out, like, I got to disagree with you on that one. I feel like it was stopped early. I honestly do. But here's the thing. He's not the hometown guy. He's not defending a belt. There's no leverage there. There's no pressure being put on a referee to be like, you know what? We're going to let you see how far you can go taking this punishment. You go that amount of rounds being essentially a punching bag. Sorry, that amount of punches in a row being essentially a punching bag. It's tough. Now, right. You could argue that the ref should have given him a standing 8 because he did get knocked back into the ropes. But we've seen it many times where guys get knocked into the ropes and the referees don't do that. It almost seems like a lost art form to give guys standing 8s in boxing. You don't really see it that much. But look, it was disappointing. You got to be disappointed in Samuel Vargas. Where does it take Benn? My thing right now is I'd actually like to see Benn take on David Avenetian. I think that's a natural next step for him. David Avenetian does work with Matchroom out there. He just took on Josh Kelly. Looked really good in that fight. He's rough. He's rugged. He's tough. He should be able to take the guy rounds. And it's kind of the next step in that kind of European system there where you start off as the national champ and then you go to the European championship on your way to the world championship. So to me, that's kind of a natural progression. And I think it would be a good fight. What are your thoughts, Dave?
I would love to see that fight. Going with Vargas, and it's a tough break for the kid. And Hypo just put in there is no standing 8 rule anymore, and he's right about that. It's the fighter's job to adjust to whatever is coming against him. And Vargas obviously was thinking that Benn was going to go out there and probably establish his jab, get into a rhythm. But the kid had other plans for the night. He jumped all over him. Vargas's body, if it was younger, if it was fresher, the what ifs could have rolled out for him. The thing is, the body didn't respond to it. So it's up to the ref. And remember this, the refs are always criticized for allowing fights to go too long. And this is a proven warrior, an older warrior who's been in there, has seen the best, has fought the best, but has lost to the best, and it only takes that one punch to change your whole life, So I'm not going to beg too much on that ref because I think the ref did what he saw and felt at the moment was the right thing to do, which was step in and prevent this guy from taking any more punishment because his body and himself wasn't very responsive to the onslaught that Benn was doing to him and stuff, Now, going off with Benn, I would love to see the David Avenetian fight. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great move. If they went that route, I'm hoping that that's something they want to look into, especially with both spectacular wins from both guys. I think it makes up a great story, and it's a great moment to seize for both of them, in my opinion, man. So I'm with you guys on that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of where things have kind of played out. And it's going to be a tough road for Samuel Vargas because he's made his reputation as a journeyman that takes guys rounds, a kind of a gatekeeper type. And if you can't make it out of the first, it's going to be pretty tough to maintain that kind of status in the game. So those are my thoughts on that one, Dave. I know you had some thoughts on the co-feature in that of that card, the Courtenay Bridges fights. Why don't you give us your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I got to tell you, it's really rare you get me to get up to want to watch two females. I mean, I try to watch as many females as I can, get in there. I support the women in the fight game. I think that they put in the work just like the men. I think they should get the respect just like the men. And you know what? To be honest, a lot of the females have been delivering, whether it's co-main event or even main event. They've been fighting for their right to be in the place of the men, right? And this fight was no different. I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I thought it was more fluff. You had two blondes, very attractive blondes, and that seemed to be the narrative. You had Shannon Courtenay, who was calling out Bridges about wearing bikinis. They obviously showed that there was some ill between them, some real bad blood. So I was like, okay, let's see what's going to happen between the two. Now, you were telling me it was a good fight, but there was no really high level skill level there. I had to completely disagree with you with that there, because I thought that Bridges was more of the pressure fighter that was trying to close that distance, push Shannon Courtenay back, keep her on her back foot, get her against the ropes where she could do her work. But instead, we saw Shannon Courtenay, who obviously studied Bridges and understood that she was the boxer in between this relationship between them, right? And she went out there, she established the jab, she was pot shotting, she was landing shots where it needed, and she was sitting on her punches when she needed to sit on her punches. That pace was so brutal and fast that, man, I got to give them kudos, because neither one of them looked like they were gassing out, except for Bridges toward those ends. And it really was due because she was searching and she was taking a lot of punishment, not just to the face, but to the body. But I thought both women, man, were trying to figure each other out. The only thing is that Shannon Courtenay, you could tell her IQ in boxing is a little bit higher than Bridges.
I mean, I got to disagree. I felt that the skill level was pretty much just being shown on one side, and that side was Shannon Courtenay. And even then, I would have liked to see her using angles a little bit more, circling away a little bit more, because
Bridges?
No,
or Shannon
Courtenay, because Bridges' attack was very rudimentary, dog. Like, it was just come straight forward. Her combinations were very predictable. She was essentially repeating the same line of attack over and over again. Yes. And she was
but I mean, why fix something that's not broken, though? I mean, why did she have to make another adjustment if it was working against Bridges every time she was coming forward? That makes no sense. You know what I mean? I mean, it is a high skill level fight because she was dominant, and she was doing everything just right to her opponent. I mean, when a guy does it, it's skillful, right? I mean, we just saw Ennis Boots dismantle Lipinets. I mean, it was a one-sided fight, and guess what? Everybody's saying he looked brilliant. So why can't it be the same in the same breath for Shannon?
That's not what I was saying. I started out by saying that the skill level in the fight was all on Shannon Courtenay's side. I was saying that it was all one-sided. I mean, I
didn't think it was one side. I thought Bridges was landing some good uppercuts. She was landing some left hooks. The thing is that she doesn't have the power to be a pressure fighter, or the volume. She doesn't have the volume to apply that. She could move forward. She could take a good licking. She could take a good punch. Her face had the Gotti-esque type of look. Her face was all puffed up. A lot of people would have folded, and she did it. Her will was never broken.
That's why I can't give her performance an A in Courtenay, because she did get tagged multiple times by a woman who had a very one-dimensional, repetitive attack. She was going down center line all the time. She wasn't cutting off the ring. She wasn't varying her punches very much. And yeah, I think that with a few subtle adjustments, he wouldn't have even really been getting touched by Bridges all that much. But I mean, to say that it's on line with what we saw later, and I know we're going to discuss this next, like Boots Ennis was barely even touched by Lipinets,
But Lipinets wasn't really throwing any punches. I mean, look, the difference with me is, look, if we're looking at the women division, the girl Jessica, what's her last name?
McCaskill.
Do you think she's a far better, superior boxer than the Shannon Courtenay that we saw Saturday night? I wouldn't think so. I thought Shannon Courtenay showed more composure, more boxing skills, and she actually, stayed. She kept her ring generalship. She kept her composure. She got clipped. Yeah, and that's part of boxing. Could she have done a little bit more? Absolutely. But she had to do what she had in front of her, which was a raging bull, and that bull kept coming forward. I don't know. I thought it was a great performance. That was a high-level performance, in my opinion. I would rather watch those two go at it again than the Jessica McCaskill with the other girl. You know what I'm saying? This fight on Saturday was a far better skill and level fight for me in the women's department.
Look, this was a quote-unquote world title fight where the combined records of the opponents of these two women was a losing record. I mean, I'm just not going to be comparing it with the kind of fights that I consider high-level boxing fights. If I'm going to have one standard for a man, the same standard is going to be applied for a woman. Like, we're in 2021. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Let's face it. There's no way that a fight like that, at least to me, should have been a co-feature of a major card. It just was not that great. I mean, it was entertaining. I think it was definitely entertaining, but I mean, we're just going to have to disagree on whether it was like a skill, a performance that I would consider like a skillful, great performance. Because
I'm looking at it as a great performance. Take away the fact that there were women, it was a great performance. I thought it was a great fight. Whether it was co-feature and not, it lived up to the expectations I didn't have for this fight, And going with D-Style saying, I mean, this is a girl that only had a very short period of time of boxing. To tell you the truth, she looked like she's been doing it for quite some time. It looked really good. I mean, she stuck to a game plan. It's very difficult for somebody to stick to a game plan, especially when you got somebody coming forward that's landing a good uppercut, landing a good left hook. The thing with Bridges is she's got to go back to the drawing board and look at that fight. She has no defense for the right hand. That's what she was getting clipped, and that's what hurt her throughout the whole fight. All those rounds, she kept getting hurt. She got rocked, twice, 3 times in that fight. Again, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great fight between the two ladies.
All right. Well, again, I thought it was an entertaining fight. My expectations were low. It met those expectations, and we'll see where these two go from here. I mean, the division's super weak. Like I said, they both had opponents, I believe, that had a combined losing record. I don't know where they go from here. I mean, this is kind of the problem with women's boxing generally. There's not that much depth of talent across these divisions, these weight classes, which is why you have someone like Clarissa Shields calling out Katie Taylor.
Well, now she's calling out Savannah Marshall, right? I think that's her name.
No, I think
Savannah Marshall, which was the co-feature, of the night before the Conor Benn and Samuel Vargas.
I think it's actually Savannah Marshall that's calling out Clarissa Shields. I don't think it's the other way around. But
no, it's Clarissa Shields. She said it on Twitter today. Well, yesterday she was calling her out.
I stand corrected. I mean, I think both ladies are calling each other out, but rightfully so. They really don't got anywhere else to go. I mean, there's not a lot of pickings in that division or any of the divisions of the women. They have to pretty much go who's available and what's next for them. They don't have the choices that the men have, which is pick and choose or to play the game of you need to cross the street or I need to go across the street. Right. Yeah. That's pretty much it. I mean, there is no street really when you think about it with women's boxing. I mean, the street is wherever I can get a body to get in front of me to get a fight. So
right.
Yeah. So let's move on to Ennis, Boots Ennis. Actually, before that, why don't we discuss the Jerwin Ancajas Rodriguez fight? Because I thought Ancajas showed a lot of different levels and facets to his game. He boxed, he traded, he showed he has power, he showed he has can box off the back foot. I was very impressed by his performance, but I mean, I went into this fight really respecting the dude. Great champion.
You weren't impressed by him last time, though, if I remember correct, right?
No.
Yeah, I remember you weren't impressed. I don't think anybody was. You know, a lot of folks were kind of labeling him to be boring.
But that's actually not true. I was actually saying that Ancajas was good, and Nando was in the chat disagreeing with me that Ancajas to him was boring because if you remember correctly, you guys had said that he'd fought up in the Bay Area. You remember that?
Right.
And I was like, whoa, I didn't see that fight that you guys are talking about, but I thought Ancajas is good. And I actually was calling for, before this fight, Ancajas to take on Ioka, and that
right,
should take on the winner of Chocolatito and Estrada. Now, those two are running it back, but, you know.
Well, I mean, to be fair, though, Ancajas has not given the performance that he did on Saturday night, the way he looked, you know, to be fair, because he's kind of had that skill that he's going to make everybody just not look like they're in the fight. With this fight on Saturday, it was a tug of war. He had to really dig deep, and it was a great fight between the two. You know, Rodriguez, I mean, he put up a show, and he showed that, you know what, I'm just not here to collect a check, but also if I win or lose, I hope the fans want to see me again. And guess what? He walked away with me saying, I want to see you again.
Yeah, there was a point in the fight where it seemed as if even his corner was questioning whether he should continue. I believe it was after the 8th round. And they were having discussions, and they're asking him if he wanted to go on. He's like, fuck yeah, I want to go on. And then he went on the fight with cojones, as they say, for the rest of the fight. And I like it. Like Andre, shout out to Andre in the chat. Like he did take it to him. Like they left it all in the ring. It was literally leave it in the ring on Saturday night in that fight. And yeah, sign me up for him against Cuadras. Sign me up for him against Sorangvasai or anybody of the other big names at 115 pounds. I definitely want to see him again. That's for sure.
You know, it's crazy because fights like this is what makes fans forget about the loss. You always remembered from your last fight, and this kid Rodriguez is walking away with a loss, but what really a win because fans want to see him again, you know, whereas, you know, the other divisions where they're doing a lot of picking and choosing and, you know, a lot of nonsense, you know, nobody's actually getting in the ring and wanting to leave it in the ring, right? Whereas the flyweights and super flyweights, the lower weight divisions, they're all so stacked. You know, I mean, they're really the glory divisions right now at this moment. And guess what? None of them are playing these little tricks. None of them is playing these little mind games and talking about, well, I want this and who's the A and who's the B, who's the B. They're pretty much leaving that decision in the ring. And it's a ring robin, and it's a chance to really be an carousel where everybody's going at it once over and over. And that what makes this lower division so special. Too bad the networks haven't caught up to it. You know, not everybody in networks have caught up to it. A lot of these guys should be headlining. A lot of these guys should have more limelight and have more media all over them, you know, to cover them and talk about them. Because just like me and you, Milcar, we've been excited about this division, both of those divisions right now.
100%. I mean, there's a name that I could have also mentioned, Kosei Tanaka. I mean, I'd love to see him fight him. I mean, there's so many options here at 115 pounds that are worth exploring. And the demands of the fighters at this weight class are just not what they are of, you know, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, or you even go lower to the fucking welterweights, like they're not fighting each other, you know?
No, it's really strange too, man. It just seems like it's got worse and worse. You know, everybody wants to play the fiddle and nobody wants to get on the dance floor, and that's why these little guys, they're really keeping the spirit and they're keeping the blood flowing through the fight fans that want to continue to watch the sport, because they're the only ones that are willing to lace up and get in there and duke it out.
100%. And just want to shout out all of the people that are joining us here live. Bunch of people. We got Toby Bartlett, Neon Eyes, Bruce Goes, Chen Smoke, I Buy Houses, London Left Hook, my man out there from the UK. Jose Yepes is in the house. Outlaw always, my brother Haplotype in the building. Still waiting for you to drop knowledge about Joe Calzaghe. There's a lot of Joe Calzaghe haters out there. You're definitely not one of them, and you're debunking those stereotypes. Cruzito G is in the house. So guys, keep it going. Subscribe. I got the channel in the chat there. Like and subscribe, share this, and the phone lines are open. Area code 718-618-4284, 718-618-4284. Also on Skype, El Maestro Amilcar at gmail.com. You could contact us through that as well. David Boots Ennis, Sergey Lipinets, what were your thoughts after Saturday night?
Boots, man, there's not much to say about the kid. He's very impressive, very composed, strong, quick. I mean, if we got a new boxing video game coming out, you can make up your own fighter, put them all together and put all the right stuff and the right things in place. Boots is one of those kids that you could really put together. The thing is that Lipinets is a smaller guy. He moved up. We know that Lipinets is a very limited fighter. Okay, we just like what we were hoping to get out of Vargas was to take the kid that we had high hopes for into rounds, and Lipton was able to do that with Boots, but he just took him into rounds. He didn't really test him in those rounds. He couldn't really do anything. He would land an occasional good hard left hook, but Boots kept him in the angles. Boots turned him every time the kid Lipton sat on his punches. Boots was no longer there, to be hit. It was a great performance. But I think everybody needs to pump their brakes, man. I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to see Boots jump up to the next level. I know some folks are like, well, you know what? Forget about, fill out rounds. Let's test them with more in the water. Again, I go, why are we such a rush? Let this guy kind of build. Let's see what else he could do. Because remember this, if he steps up and he doesn't give that performance, immediately fight fans write these guys off. As fast as they come in, they knock him out of the park, and Lennox Lewis had a great saying, the famous saying, which is, it's a hurry come up. You hurry to come up, and then you hurry to go back down.
Well, you know what? People that want him to step up and are on one side, you're on the other side, David. The fact is, the guys that people are calling for him to step up against, they're not even fighting each other. So I don't see them taking on a high-risk, low-reward guy in Boots.
Because there's really no money in Boots yet. Think about this. I mean, some folks are saying, hey, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, blah, blah, blah. I mean, think about this. Danny Garcia and Sean Porter with Al Heyman. Al has shown that he'll get these guys a shitload of money and fighting nobodies, which makes it difficult. And I've said this in years. It makes it difficult for up-and-comers that show true promising to get the real fights that's needed for them to sharpen up their skills, to bring out new tools out of the shed so we could see what they're all about. This is what hurts the sport sometimes, So it's sad to see that. But you know what fighters need to do is they got to fight the fights the way Sean Porter did to corner the champions out there. Ugas was a name that was brought up to Boots in the post interview. And guess what, Amilcar? He was like, bring him on. Let's make that happen. At least he's one of the guys who are not saying, well, let me talk to my promoter. Let me talk to my manager. He's actually accepting. Let's fight. Let's take on who we can at the moment.
That's something that he shares in common with another young gun in Virgil Ortiz, who had no problem saying that he was ready and willing to take on Terrence Crawford, regardless of what people think about that. But here's the problem for Boots. Ugas ain't taking him on. And it's not because Ugas is afraid. The fact is, there's way more money in a Errol Spence fight. And you go towards Errol Spence, you got 2 titles at stake. Boots not have a title.
Nope.
Does not bring a big fan base just yet. That's not his fault. He's still very young.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not bringing anything into the to the table that like the big dogs in the division are going to find appetizing. The money's not there. The titles aren't there. And the skill level and risk is extremely high. So Boots,
right.
I think he needs to do is just have a look at those welterweight rankings, pick a sanctioning body, and do his best to just climb up the ranks until he's in one of these mandatory positions. And that's what I would do if I was playing promoter, right, as we like to say, and was doing the Boots Ennis promoting, because those guys are not going to give him a shot.
They're not going to give him a shot, and I'm pretty sure his management and his handlers understand that. Look, boxing at the end of the day, it's a business, and in that business, it's who you know and who you could pressure to get where you want to go. Fighters traditionally fight to get in those positions. Now that there's money, lots of money in the boxing game, which has always been lots of money in the boxing game, but it's always been behind the scene. The fans really didn't know what was going on. Now with the internet, everybody is now an investor to the sport or to their fighters, as they say, right? But that's the shitty part for Boots, and it's the shitty part, but not the shitty part. And this is what I say. I know folks are already saying, hey, let's see him against like Terrence Crawford, Porter, and all these other guys. And what you just mentioned, which is right. These guys are not going to want anything to do with Boots at the moment. He doesn't bring anything to the table. That's why I say it's okay for him to continue building his name, fighting the names that are available and are willing to get in with him. Allow him to get to know the fight fans, to get to know him a bit more, so he becomes more of a demand, And realistically, Boots, honestly, is not going to fight any of these other champions until they get a little bit older, And then, 3 to 4 years from now, everybody's going to be pressing to see Boots and Virgil Ortiz if they're still undefeated, or not, that's part of the fight game when it comes to that division. That's why I'm saying the ones that are keeping, the heartbeat of the sport are the flyweights, and those smaller divisions are the ones that are really putting in the soul into the sport and keeping it alive right now.
Look, I'm going to head back to the chat here because my man out of Portugal, Andre, says, half a century ago, young great talents got losses in the first 50 fights exactly because of that attitude. And today, some of them are in our pound for pound top 20 of all time. He's absolutely right. The modern fighter is fighting once to twice a year and really only wants super fights. I go back to my childhood. You talk about welterweights. Let's keep it at welterweights. Look at De La Hoya.
Mm-hmm.
De La Hoya was fighting a super fight on pay-per-view and was then following up that super fight with a fight on regular HBO. And he was not fighting twice a year. So we kind of got to figure out a way to get back to that. Puerto Rican Rum says Boots versus Virgil can be a $100 million fight if they play their cards right. That has the potential to be a super fight. Outlaw thinks that fight will take place eventually at 154. And Boots is a big welterweight. Virgil Ortiz can definitely grow into 154. So that is definitely a strong possibility right there. So look, like and subscribe. Channels in the description box. Hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure you get those notifications. Pretty soon, my man 97 Rough right beside me is going to be back on the Leave It in the Ring network. We are just doing this temporarily right now. Tonight, simulcasting on my channel.
I think we might be jumping back and forth, to tell you the truth, here some on Leave It in the Ring channel, some back over here at Maestro channel and stuff. Hey, but let me go back really quick. We're going to have a guest at 5:00, which I'm really excited about. Strength conditioning coach Luis Garcia. He's going to come on here and answer a lot of questions that have been lingering in the boxing circuit. Things about weight loss, things about PEDs, things about what is right to do for your body to gain weight, what is wrong for your body to do to lose weight. A lot of stuff. So stick with us and stuff. But to tackle back about centuries ago, about fighters fighting 50 and having a loss in there to get where they're at, times change. And obviously times have changed rapidly in the last 20 years in boxing. Okay, boxing has always been ahead of the curve, though. We are like the very first to have websites and talking about forums and all the stuff that you see right now. But the thing that has really been hurting boxing and Milk Carton, you said, like, what can we do? Honestly, I think the only way to eliminate a lot of this confusion, a lot of this BS of fighters and picking and choosing and having more fists in their punches in their Twitter accounts than in the actual place where it counts is in the ring is really social media. And how we fix that is we introduce boxing back to the real public relations people, the people that really know how to groom a fighter, the people that understand what the fans and the people are looking for and they want. We don't have that. We have now fighters trying to groom themselves, trying to, create this character for that they think that fight fans want to see and want to have because they're in love of followers, they're in love of likes and people, retweeting them and these clicks and stuff. They think that that's what's getting them these big fights. Just like what Al Heyman did. And the criticism with Al Heyman from the beginning was there was just too much money being thrown on the table for fighters that eventually it will backfire. And guess what? It has backfired because fighters don't want to fight. Same thing with social media. That eventually is going to die out. Eventually, fight fans are going to get tired of seeing guys just do their talking with fists in the social world, not in the actual place where it has to take place, which is in those four corners, right? So I think the only way that boxing is going to fix itself, and we're going to see fighters really start fighting each other, which in a little bit, we're starting to see that. And the reason why you got like a Virgil Ortiz and in his boots that are saying, hey, you know what, I want to fight this guy, because guess what? They're not in that position. They're actually now are kind of suffering what these fighters ahead of them have done, which is taking advantage of the bank account, taking advantage of the promoter, giving them big paydays without really earning those big paydays. See, these guys actually have to fight for those earnings, and they're right to even be in the same breath and talks of these other guys, which I like, and I'm embracing that because I want these fighters to be hungry. I want these fighters to want to fight each other. I want fighters to be frustrated, get pissed off, show up in another fighter's ring and start calling them out, get in their face. Screw all the Twitter thing, getting on your phone and talking smack. I wanted to go back the way it used to be, which is what? Fight.
Well, you know what's good about this, Dave?
Yeah.
What you're describing is the guys that are in their 30s. You're describing Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, the guys that aren't fighting each other. That's not the case with Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz. I think Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz are willing to fight anybody. So, and they also come across as very humble. And
very humble.
The way they are inside the ring is very consistent with the way they seem to appear outside the ring. Hardworking, giving it all they got, just letting their talking. And I like what I see out of both of these dudes.
Normally you would know the guy's personality in the ring is the way they behave out of the ring, like Arturo Gatti, the late Arturo Gatti. The guy was a wild man in the ring, and he lived the same way outside the ring. Adrian Broner was a wild kid, in the ring. The way he acted, the same way he acted outside the ring. With Boots and Ortiz, you could really see these are very grounded young men, and they're just grown up in the gladiator tradition. There's no flamboyant. There's nothing glamorous about them. They're not trying to be somebody. They're not. What they're trying to do is live up to tradition. Tradition of fighters is what they've done for centuries, which is get in there, do their talking with their fist, and go home. Make it to another days for another payday. That's what they're doing, and that's what I love.
Gorgoruga is bringing up a throwback dude who's a current fighter, but definitely a throwback kind of fighter, in Derek Chisora. Fought 3 current and future world champs before his 20th fight. Dr. Vitaly Klitschko, David Haye, and Tyson Fury. Absolutely. And right. Chisora's still doing it. Chisora's definitely one of the throwback guys that's out there.
He's such a throwback guy. Look at that resume right there that you have fight fans that are actually disrespect the guy. They call him a bum, or they say, this guy, he's over the hill, blah, blah, blah. But they don't even look at what, if he is over the hill, if he is shop worn, why is he shop worn? Because he took on the fights. He took on the real fights. You
Yeah,
know, those are your badges. You know, you don't get these gold watches after your retirement or when you're close to retirement. You don't get the plaques that say you made 100,000 this year or 150,000 this year. The scars and the muscle aches, and you're looking like you're a step behind. Those are the plaques. Those are the stripes and the ribbons that you receive from boxing. And those are the guys that you should respect and love.
Yep, and I just want to give a shout out to my hermano. Nopal Boxeanos, thank you for joining us tonight, brother. Always a pleasure to have you here with the Leave It in the Ring family. Absolutely.
I have it on the comments. I don't see anybody. I don't know what the hell. I don't know if it's I think it's my end, dude. It's all like scribbly. I don't know.
Well, I'll put it up for you right there. You see it right there now, right, Dave? There you go, up on the screen.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, I see that on the screen.
There you go.
I'd like to say what's up to everybody in the chat room. I might have to just go click over. Here, let me go put it on another web page so I could see.
So, look, a lot of things happening, percolating in boxing. You know, we discussed the 115-pound division. For my money, the best division in the sport right now. And you know what? 118 ain't too far off either. So, a lot of action happening down in the lower weight divisions. You know what? Even 122 for that matter. You got Luis Neri, you got Stephen Fulton, Rais Alim, you got Daniel Roman. You got a lot of guys down there as well. So, look, boxing is kind of where it needs to be as we get into the summer, as we kind of work our way through the spring.
The calendar's looking good, man, to tell you the truth. The calendar is looking good for boxing.
I mean, the main fight that obviously needs to happen is the Tyson Fury AJ fight. And that fight was kind of dominating some of the headlines this weekend. You know, Tyson Fury put out that tweet with the countdown clock. And then last night, AJ posted something and pretty much said that the first official offer came through. My thing was, if that was the first official offer, does that mean all the other offers were bullshit?
all the other offers were memes. That's it. They weren't even offers.
Right? So there you go. Oh, my man D just joined us as well. D from Speak Your Mind Sports.
What's up, brother?
If you want to get on, I can send you the link if you want to join us live. Or you can call in 718-618-4284, 718-618-4284. So there you go. Yeah, are you any more excited after this weekend's news, David, about the potential Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua fight than you were at the beginning of the weekend?
Man, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I haven't even been excited about any of it, to tell you the truth, because I'm just not, you know me. Anybody that's worked with me, how many years I've been covering this fucking sport, knows that I don't get overly excited in boxing until they're in there, actually, you know, especially when it's high profile fights. I don't get like, oh my God, it's going to happen. I just let throw the dice, and wherever they roll, that's how it's going to end up. And I'll be happy with that, you know. For me, it just doesn't matter. They could do all the talking they want. You know, the day that I get excited is the day when I hear, you know, the ring walk. They're walking down and they get in the ring, and I have my 12-pack right there because, you know, I have to have my 12-pack, Amokar. I know you're against that and stuff, but I got to have my 12-pack and crack it open, and then that's when I'm excited. Other than that, this whole, you know what, they do an offer and all, it's just, I can care less, you know?
Absolutely. You know, so before we get on to our guest who's going to be joining us in the second and final hour of the show, I got to ask you something.
You don't want to talk about Joe Smith?
Yeah, we can get into that one now. Actually, the Joe Smith Vlasov fight. I felt Vlasov won, but I can see the decision going the other way. If you're a guy like Vlasov, you're taking on a guy in his home country. You're going in there as a dog. It's very difficult to win a close decision. You got to knock a guy out or just thoroughly outbox him for the entire fight. And even then it can be difficult. I felt that he won the fight. I felt that, especially in the early rounds, he was making Joe Smith look super basic. And
That's because he is super basic, though. That's why.
And eventually, he started to kind of get touched up a little bit. But for every power shot that Joe Smith was landing, he was landing like 6, 7, 8, perfectly crisp, accurate shots.
Vlasov, we said this. I said this, remember, when it was originally announced before the whole COVID thing had made the first fight be canceled. I said Vlasov is the poor man version of Joe Calzaghe. He, tries to have his hands low, get his face in front of your chest, and, get really cutie. I had said, though, that he couldn't do that too much with Joe Smith because he can get clipped. And guess what? He got clipped and he got hurt, But, the comparisons that people were giving Joe Smith to Kelly Pavlik, Kelly Pavlik had a jab. Joe doesn't have a jab. When I heard the commentators asking for a body shot, or I even saw some fight fans go to the body, Joe, go to the body. Joe's never been a body snatcher. He's never been a body puncher. Joe has kind of been carried, through his career with the power that he carries. He's easy to figure out. I thought he got a gift. I wouldn't say it's a robbery. There was some rounds that could have swung either way, but just like you, I thought the other guy deserved to win.
Yeah, I thought he did enough. Let's see if we got Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. D. Jefferson, you on live with us on Leaving in the Ring?
Yeah. What's up, bro? Hey, I'm on the way home. This is a lot of noise. Just send me the link, bro. As soon as I get to the house, I'll be there in like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to jump on with you.
Got you, man. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. I'll share that with you on Twitter. I'll DM you. Is that cool?
I got you.
All right, sounds good, D. Thank you so much. If anyone else wants to call in, the phone lines are open, is what we do on Leaving in the Ring. We open up these phones. We love to get your opinion on what's going on. If you think what I said was bullshit, let me know, all right?
G-Funky is on point when he said Joe Smith is very inconsistent with his fight-to-fight base, and you couldn't be more right about that. Either he's on or he's off, but he's easy to figure out. That's the problem with Joe Smith. Could he learn how to box? Probably. I think he needs to get rid of his team, to tell you the truth, man. I'll probably get a lot of flack for that, but I think he needs to get rid of his team, because the next fight they're talking about, which is a big fight, I got to tell you, if he looked bad against a guy that he could have put a little bit more effort and probably could have added a little bit more to his arsenal, could have done something to make the fight even sway more in his favor, even though he got it. And I think in a lot of fight fans' minds, he lost that fight. But if he wanted to be a little bit more convincing, he could have added some things that help him out, that could have kept Vlasov out on the distance of the right hand for him to land a little bit more clean and more regularly, which could have been a jab. Also to slow down the movement. He could have, blind him with a jab and then go to the body when he got in close. But instead, he didn't do any of that stuff. And why is that? Because sometimes that's not always entirely the fighter's fault. It has to be the corners. Maybe they didn't do enough. Maybe they didn't work on that. Maybe they didn't see what a lot of us were seeing that night. I don't know.
The other thing, too, is obviously Vlasov has enough punching power to keep people honest. I mean, he was touching up Joe Smith. Joe Smith's face was full of swelling. He was tagging Joe Smith and then moving.
Yes, he was.
Angles. So it's not just an issue of what Tim Bradley likes to counsel fighters to do, which is usually a good advice, like go to the body. But he is a limited fighter who is a 1-2 guy, occasionally throws the hook behind the 1-2. And it's the type of guy that can get outboxed by a guy like Vlasov. And I felt Vlasov won the fight. I had it about 116, 112. And I think that the scorecards were absolutely nuts because I heard this morning that none of the judges in this fight had Vlasov winning the first 10 rounds. And if you don't have the guy winning the first rounds, I mean, that really says all you need to know about how fair the cards were stacked for Vlasov.
What about Joe DeGuardia just jumping up and down in that corner when Vlasov got punched in the nuts? In the back of the head. I'm sorry, he was hitting the back of the head.
I mean, it was outrageous, to be honest. It was totally outrageous. So, look, I've started to notice this, and I've noticed it on ESPN. Actually, I haven't seen it anywhere else.
There was no way Joe Smith was going to lose that fight, though, man. I got that huge sense.
I don't mean that, David. What I mean is these promoters feeling emboldened enough to be walking around the ring, yelling at referees, yelling at state commission guys, and it happens to be on these top-ranked PBC cards. I saw that before with the Maloney fight. Like, look, I didn't think that was a headbutt, but I also don't think that Bob Arum should be going around yelling at officials in the middle of a fight. You know, it's like they seem to think that they really own the card, they own the commission, they own the network, and it's what they say should be going. I'm bringing on my man D. Jefferson from Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. D. Jefferson, you are live on Leave It in the Ring. How's it going, fam?
What's up, fellas? How y'all
What's going
doing
on, brother?
Not bad, bro.
Yeah, shit, man, just got back from, I gotta get a new car, bro. Gotta get another car. That damn Lexus I have done had it. I gotta get something else. So I went to test drive a couple of cars. But yeah, what we cooking on?
So we're talking about the Vlasov Joe Smith fight. How did you have it?
I had it really close, man. I think that when the decision came down, one of my guys, IBT, Immortal Boxing Truth, and we were doing the card. So, you know, I do the blow by blow, and he does the in between round analysis. And at the end of the fight, we actually both had it the same. We had it 6-5 with a draw. I mean, with a swing round. So I came to the conclusion that I really didn't mind who won the fight between those two guys. But, you know, I don't know, man. Like, sometimes it's all about, like, when you get fights that's like 6-5, I mean 6-6 or 7-5, they close like that. I don't really cry robbery or holler robbery, right? Because this is my perception on it. I'm one guy, right? So it's like three of us sitting here right now. It's three judges, and I only have one perspective. And these judges look for different things. You understand what I'm saying? And so when it's a fight that close, I can't really argue with the decision. Me personally, I had to swing round to Vlasov.
Yeah, so did I.
Right, which means that if they gave it to Joe Smith, I'm not going to holler. But the fact that I had it a swing round, they could have gave it to Vlasov, and I wouldn't holler either. I can't really get mad at people saying they feel like Vlasov won that fight. I could see that. I could see why they would feel that way.
I feel the same way, D. And all I was saying earlier is that in these fights that are close like that, where you got one guy maybe a round ahead or two ahead, when it's not the hometown fighter, and definitely when it's a guy coming from another country, that guy's usually not going to eke out the decision. And when you're on the road and you're a guy like Vlasov, really what you need to do is knock motherfuckers out. But unfortunately, he doesn't necessarily have those one-hitter quitters in the left.
That's not in his temperament either. That's not his temperament at all.
That's not who he is. So what you got to be, if you're a guy like that, you mentioned him being a poor man's Joe Calzaghe. Well, what did he do? Joe Calzaghe stayed his ass at home, right? Built up his fame and his record in his home country of Wales. And
but he was also very dominant of his style, you know,
that was the next thing.
Yeah, he was very dominant, you know, and you know what? When you talk about limited fighters, like we were talking about earlier, Mokar, Joe's limited. So, you know, I think people were, you know, even the judges were giving him some rounds because of the limitations he had. And also he had the crowd, you know, and he had everybody behind him. The story that they keep building up, he's a working man, class man. You know, he came from nothing. You know, he's the guy that to the last stop, Bernard Hopkins. A lot of people get sold on that, you know, and they hold that to true to them to whatever they're watching and stuff, you know. What I was watching was a limited guy that was having a lot of issues who got a win. And guess what? Is living off of what he just got, which was that gift. Because I'm pretty sure the other guy that's going to step in is not going to make that same mistake because of one thing. He's got power.
You know what, Dave? With Maxim Vlasov, he's one of these fighters like Okoli, right? He's awkward. He's so awkward. The angles that he comes from, the way he punches. You know, these guys is really is it? Oh, I gotta call him and check it out. These guys, it shouldn't be. These guys that are awkward like that, they just give everybody hella problems.
Absolutely.
They go from these weird angles, and you see how Vlasov fight his movements. And when you're a guy I don't care who you are, if you like a guy that's purely of the sweet science. I'll give you an example. Floyd Mayweather, pure boxer. We all know that. Pure boxer. Emmanuel Augustus gave him hella fight trouble. If you guys know about that fight, Emmanuel Augustus. Floyd Sr. said that was the hardest fight that Floyd ever fought. The reason is because Floyd is a student of the sweet science. So generally they're going to be practicing against a guy who's going to come to them of the sweet science, not with that crazy, awkward, style with these crazy angles. That's what Vlasov, that's what Emmanuel Augustus is. They're these kind of guys that you can't train for. You can sit in the damn gym all you want. You're not even going to get a sparring partner to replicate that foolery. I mean, it's good because it throws his opponents off, but that's not how you say, that's not traditional of the sweet science. So it's hard to, look good, or sometimes
but
beat a guy like that.
But we got to go back what Joe really is. I mean, he's not a very polished fighter. Right. I mean, he doesn't have the fundamentals like a Floyd Mayweather or any really good boxer. This is a guy that uses what he has as which is his power. That's his moneymaker. That's what's got him out of trouble in the past. To ask him to put up a game plan and to stay true to that game plan or to make adjustments on the fly is asking a lot. To me, Joe Smith right now is just on borrowed time, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I look at his career at this moment, enjoy it because it's borrowed time.
Yeah.
Well, I saw what I needed to know about Joe Smith in the Dmitry Bivol fight. And while people has said that kind of he's improved, he still hasn't yet returned to fighting a guy whose primary asset is supreme boxing skill. That's not Alvarez, who, with all due respect, fought a very dumb fight against him.
That's horrible game plan.
Terrible game plan. I agree. And I actually expected more from his trainer. Like, he's trained by Mark Ramsey, who's actually one of the better trainers in the sport. That was totally befuddling to me that he went into that fight with that kind of game plan against the Joe Smith, a straight come forward, 1-2, maybe throws the hook behind it kind of guy. Anyways, I digress. What I was getting to was the fact that I'll be convinced about Joe Smith when I see him beat convincingly another boxer like that. And I did not see him convincingly beat Vlasov on Saturday night. I just didn't. Okay. And guess what? Bivol's still at 175, and Baturviev, despite what people think, that dude could box. That dude was your world champion. That guy does like to take it to you and apply his power, but he has some boxing in his game too, and an IQ.
I tell you this too. After the Dmitry Bivol fight, it's not like he didn't wash Jesse Hart. You know what I mean? And we're talking about a Jesse Hart here. So that's another indication that he just might not be, on that level. I had somebody come on my panel last night. This was going to make you guys laugh. Said that Joe Smith is taking over. He is the best at 175. Check it out. And probably the greatest 175-pounder of all time. I swear, bro, it's on my live. I said, bro, are you serious?
Obviously, that guy's name was Joe Tessitore, who was literally jizzing his pants every time Joe Smith threw a power shot. It was crazy. Shout out to Alexis L., who's dropped $2 in the super chat. Just a programming note. We're simulcasting tonight, so all of the people that are here tuning in with D-Style Boxing, just click the description box link. You got the link to the channel there. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification box. Want to shout out Bruce Goes. Want to shout out G Funky Boxing, H Money, Andrea Rodriguez, and Hamed, who's joined us in the chat. We've got our first guest, or our guest tonight, strength and conditioning specialist, Luis Garcia. I'm going to bring him on. And we'll see what's cooking in the world of Luis Garcia. Here we go. Good to see you, my man.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Sorry, I'm here in my car. Just had a busy day today, and just finishing up some training. And I figured I'd get on here right now. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank you.
Good. Luis, ¿qué pasó, bro? How you been, man? Long time.
I know, man. I know it's good to have you. Talk to you once again, be on your show. I know I've been a little bit removed from the sport, but that's actually been a good thing. I mean, I'm in contact with a lot of the fighters. I get a chance to talk to them quite a bit. Been advising some of them, on some of their camps. But it's been a breath of fresh air because it's allowed me to kind of take a step away from it a little bit and see it from a different perspective. I think sometimes you get immersed into something so much and you live and eat and breathe and sleep, boxing, and I think you stop thinking outside the box. So it's been good though.
It's been, I don't know what, it's been almost 3, maybe 4 years, right, that we've talked. I mean, just to give people a heads up, Luis is a strength conditioning coach. He worked with Abner Mars. You really helped out Abner Mars and to keep up that conditioning, keep him there, and the championship. The guy was looking phenomenal every time out. And the reason why I wanted to have you on, because one, I've known you for so long and I trust you when it comes to talking about the conditioning of fighters and how to strengthen them, how to gain weight and lose weight. And we were having a conversation, between text and everything. And we got into the whole Canelo thing. And that's where we started talking about. So I figured it'd be great to have you on. Now, so my question is this, because I'm seeing this a lot through a lot of fight fans, that they don't understand what clenbuterol is. They still keep labeling it as PEDs, which it isn't. How does a guy that came from 140 go up to 168, even 175, put on that much muscle and still look that mobile?
You have to kind of understand it from a lot of different aspects. I think understand that when we were introduced to Canelo on a big stage, he was really young, and he was still growing into his body, and so he's gonna grow into his body naturally, like any other fighter has. They start, De La Hoya starts at 130 pounds, ends up at 154, maybe at best 147, but he was still a pretty solid 154 pounder, and so he's gonna naturally fill in, right? And everybody says, okay, in the last couple of years, he was fighting at 154, went up to 160, and then has now, gone up to, I think he fought a fight at 175, I guess, or light heavyweight.
Right.
And people think, okay, well, then he's doing something, he's taking some, PEDs or the clenbuterol is what helped him get there, which is obviously not the fact. Right. So number one, he's going to grow into his body. Every athlete, that happens. Number two is allowing himself to then, instead of dieting, just to make the weight and really weakening his body all the way through, he's actually now eating and training. And so your body's naturally gonna put on that weight. The guy's consistently in the gym. You see that he doesn't take a lot of time off between his fights. He's not like a lot of the fighters that say, okay, now I'm off season. Off season means I do absolutely nothing. The guy stays in shape. The guy stays in the gym. So naturally, your body's gonna want to grow. I mean, your body has to adapt to anything. I mean, and anything I talk about the human body, always remember one thing. Like, the only thing your body ever has to do is to adapt to any stimulus placed on it, whether it's being sedentary, whether it's, whether it's being, work, whether it's climate, whatever it is, your body has to adapt to it. And it's an adapt by doing different things, and in his way, it's, he's putting it in the work. So obviously he's gonna, and if he eats towards it, then his body's gonna grow. So I wouldn't attribute it to him any funny business or something outside of just of just his training. I mean, and maybe I'm playing devil's advocate a whole lot. Maybe there is something, but I wouldn't even think that, personally.
Yeah.
No, I know. I remember a long time ago, you were approached. I won't bring up the names of fighters that, if I brought up the names, they'll be like, what the fuck? But you've been approached by fighters, and then when you were working with Adnamars and other fighters, they were like, hey, so what are you using? What's the special stuff? So there's no denying that there's PD still circulating through the sport, and I'm pretty sure you saw now the accusation with Andy Ruiz. We saw his legs, his calves look phenomenal. His quads look massive. How does a guy like that, though, has struggled? I mean, I've talked to Andy numerous times, and the one thing about Andy was that nobody was able to seem to get Andy on a right regimen, a right meal plan to make him look the way he's looking now. I mean, we haven't seen him without a shirt. I haven't seen him without a shirt, but his legs are definitely showing signs that he's actually taking it serious. I mean, but do you think that the fans are at fault to not think that he may be on something?
A lot of things can happen. The guy's obviously an athlete. And a lot of these times, when you're an athlete, it's kind of like a really obese person that hits the gym for the first time and then drops 20 pounds in the first 2 weeks. And you're just like, oh man, these are awesome results. And it's just like their body's just waiting for something to go right. Their body's waiting for them to do something right. And I think, you're looking at his legs and maybe he just wasn't showing them off before. Maybe he had some of that, but he had some extra body fat. So you just thought they were just tree stumps, and so or maybe he just finally dialed in something. I think one thing that could be said, and just, and I know Andy through other people. I haven't talked to him in many years, since he used to be around Valdez, early in his career, because they were both friends and I was working with Valdez and he used to live with me and he used to come to the house sometimes. And that was my extent of knowing him. But from talking to some of his friends that, even outside the sport that hang out with him, he just seems to just be dialed in mentally. So now he's really truly putting in the work. Before it's like, you can say, oh man, that guy's putting the work because he's in the gym. But there's a lot to be said with that. I mean, you saw that in Oscar Valdez. I mean,
phenomenal.
I thought like, man, he didn't have that explosiveness. He didn't have certain things. And I was like, man, but this kid's a hard worker. But just being in that gym, that energy, that, the mental fortitude that, that Team Canelo brings, and Canelo is a superstar that's focused and going to work every day. It kind of reminds me of being in camp with Andre Ward and everybody just, feeding off of that energy and everybody kind of becoming a bit of Andre Ward, mentally and putting in that kind of work. So I think that's what he needed. And, he just seems to be in a better place, more centered. And even before the last fight with that he lost, Andy Reese, I was seeing him, and I've been talking with other people. He just didn't seem like his focus was there, and I saw that, and now it is. So I wouldn't, like I said, I think his body was just waiting for him to do something right. I mean, he's been putting in the work for a lot of years, but I think now he just took it up a step. He took it up a notch and now realized what it is his body needs to do. And in fine tuning all those things, I mean, a lot can happen in the last 6 months or 7 months, whatever he's been training with that entire team, and understand also understand, like, what people don't really get it is, when you talk about a fighter being not focused and, the whole drinking, I don't drink during camp or, all this other stuff, man, it takes like 3 months for your liver to actually, regenerate itself from heavy drinking or from all these different things. And then you put your liver through camp. And if you take a fighter 2 weeks away from a fight and you do a blood test, if the doctor doesn't know the fighter, he's an athlete, you probably can ask the first question, like, with that liver function, are you an alcoholic? And so think of that. You leave camp and then you're taxing your body, you're taxing your liver, which is your liver's primarily metabolizes hormones, and in which you need to recover, and then you're taxing your liver. So what growth are you actually getting during camp? You tax your liver outside of camp. Now you go into a 6 to 8 week camp and you're not drinking because you need the energy to get in the gym, but your body has never recovered. And so even if your body's producing the testosterone to regulate it, like, your body's not going to metabolize it. It's not going to do you any good, So I mean, put all those things into perspective, and why it's important for these guys to stay, healthy off season and take care of their bodies and understand that they just went through an entire like an actual car wreck, where they need to basically treat it like, hey man, I need a couple of weeks to just let my body recover, let my kidneys recover from some of the dehydration you and I talked about, let my liver recover, get back to regular normal liver function, and be back ready to, for my body to, then take on the camp and take on some of the growth that's supposed to happen during camp.
And all those tortillas and tortas and burritos that he must have been, throwing back, right? Do you know the strength and conditioning coach that's working with the Reynosos?
No, actually I don't. I've seen some of the stuff he's doing, and just basically on IG. I don't know what his overall methods are, or what his background is, but he's doing something right,
right.
So.
I've seen him doing everything from the agility ladder to deadlifts and squats. Can you speak a little bit about that? Actually, it's like strength training with weights. I know heavyweights have done it. Joshua is big on it. You even see Tyson Fury doing it. But you mentioned Valdez. He was strength training with weights, and obviously Canelo's been doing it too. I've been seeing the deadlifts and the squats as well with him. What are your thoughts on like the appropriate use of that kind of weight training?
It needs to be all done in the right time, and a lot of the stuff when we talk about weight training, everybody associates it with being very linear. Stuff like deadlifts and stuff, I think it's a little bit different. But when we talk about linear stuff like the bench press or whatnot, that's not very functional. It's just meant to strengthen, the muscle belly and get prepared for other functions. So it is something that needs to be incorporated at all points, but it also takes some time for the fighter that has never done it before to actually incorporate it in there and them feeling comfortable, because they will start feeling, tightness. They will start feeling, they're going to be sore, and you need to understand how to balance it out with not only how they feel physically, how it affects their body physically, but also, make sure that it translates into actual performance. So it becomes a functional. And so there's a period of adaptation to it. So if you do some of the weight training, which is like very common linear stuff, like the bench presses and different, shoulder presses and stuff, those are great. And you need to put your body through that, to make sure that all muscles are firing. And then obviously increase strength, but mainly a little bit more when I talk about off-season training, which is that maybe period that six weeks or more out from the fight, and then transition into more explosive, functional, weight training, during the camp and up to about 2 weeks before the actual fight. But there is a period where you need to prep the fighter. It's like, we take on a fighter and the first thing you do is like, hey, what are you doing now that got you to where you're at? Usually, when you get a fighter, they're already doing a lot of things right, or they're maybe doing a lot of things wrong, but you have to understand they've already achieved a certain amount of success, and they're at a championship level for a reason. And for you to take them and say, hey, you're doing everything wrong, let me incorporate all these different things and throw the book at them, it's not going to work. It's not going to work physically, and it's not going to work for them mentally. It's like you're gonna fill them with a bunch of doubts, as they're walking in the ring. It's like, oh shit, should I have made that change, at that point? So weight training, I think it's something that all fighters need to incorporate, but they need to learn how to do it.
Right. And what I picked up there is like, it's all about knowing when to go with volume, when to go with intensity. Much like with track and field periodization, you don't just train with weights the same way throughout the entire year. Like it's got to be structured, and the athlete has to know when to peak. And that's something that's important that people like you bring to the table, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and getting to that peak performance, and some of the linear movements that you'll do even in the last couple of weeks, that would be considered weight training. Maybe very light work, and it's just to make sure that all the muscles are firing properly, and you have no imbalances, within your body, and and then you also got to do stuff to counteract, some of the weight training and maybe shortening of the muscles or whatnot. So then you got to do other things to counteract, what they may be feeling at that moment, and understanding what that is. And a lot of fighters don't don't get there. They just kind of give up because they feel sore one day, or they feel like they're not getting their punches off, and they don't give it time to maybe for their body to adapt to it. But within talking to them and explaining it to them, and it sometimes takes a few camps. I mean, it took me about 3 camps to get Abner to a point to where it's like, I remember one time he was really pissed off at me. He's like, why the fuck are we doing, I'm sorry, excuse my language,
no, go ahead.
So much. So he's doing legs so much, and I hate doing legs. I hate this, I hate that. And the first fight against Abeko, he takes an overhand right, and he doesn't remember where he was at. His legs buckled, but his muscles fired, kept him on his feet. He got his wits 5 seconds later, and he never took that knockdown. And he's like, shit, that saved the fight for him. And that knockdown would happen, he would have lost that fight, And so at that, as soon as the fight was over, he was like, thank you for working my legs so much. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now we got to get to the next level, the next step, into becoming a more well-rounded athlete, which is another point that I want to speak on. Well-rounded athletes. I think sometimes a lot of times fighters kind of get into this mode where they just stick to their sport, and they hit the bag, and they lack other movements. They don't think about like their hip movement. They don't think about like a lot of the stuff that they're doing with their legs. And so if you look at some of the fighters that have been, the most dominant, like think of the 2 biggest ones, like of the last 20 years, Floyd, Manny Pacquiao. What do both of those guys have in common? They both play a lot of basketball, so they're multi-sport athletes, that, I mean, they maybe not professional basketball players, but they're out there doing something else.
Right. It works on your balance, your endurance. I mean, I remember speaking to a few coaches they used to say that play basketball. You got to learn how to play basketball, which I was shitty at basketball. Maybe that's why I never became a professional fighter.
Yeah, no. And it does a lot of things because you talk about repetition, and in playing basketball, you're getting repetition. Somebody in front of you, somebody that you have to guard, or you're being guarded, defensively, and so you're forced to move with someone else consistently and not take any punches, which is really it's a win-win situation. Yeah, there is those people like even Andre Ward. He got injured, at 24 Hour Fitness playing basketball, and he hurt his knee, and that was, I think, one of the things that always limited some of his training, and we really had to be careful as we went to training camp because his knee was always bothering him. But there is those things like the risk reward ratio, but so it doesn't necessarily have to be basketball, but it's just one example of saying, hey, I don't pigeonhole yourself and say, hey, I'm only going to do boxing. That's all I'm going to do. I think a lot of they got to look outside the box. And if they don't like doing those things, or maybe the risk reward ratio for that particular athlete isn't there, like Abner didn't like playing other sports. So we had to be creative in how we went in there and trained him so that he can, start utilizing his entire body, especially.
And the cabron looked like he was a soccer player, dude. How come? Yeah. I thought for sure he would have loved to play soccer.
No, man, he didn't. And that was one of the things that when I first started working with Abner, is that I saw it like as an area of opportunity, was that his leg movement, his foot movement just wasn't all there. And so we did a lot of drilling, and that's when we started doing a lot of the sand work. It took me about 2 camps to finally get him out to the beach and get on the sand and start doing some of the drills on the sand. But then when he started seeing how that translated to his footwork and his motion in the ring, and even started feeling more power, because the power starts from your toes all the way up to your hands and your fist. It doesn't start just at your shoulders and your biceps and triceps, putting that punch together. It's everything. So your core, your hip movement, positioning. I mean, all those things play a role in your power, your ability to land a punch, your ability to have defense. And so, I mean, for me personally, I think all these fighters spend so much time throwing punches that you don't really need to strengthen that aspect of them. It's like you need to help them and balance it out and do different things. But most of the stuff, if any coach can hear anything and learn something, is you got to start from the ground up. And really just work on their feet, work on the longevity. So I mean, some of the fighters that have gotten old even before their time, what's the one thing that they've lacked? It's just that mobility. And look at someone like Marquez, as he got older, he became a more exciting fighter because he was trading more. Why? Because he didn't have the legs under him anymore, and if he would have taken care of that from the get-go, and that was an area of focus, within his entire training and conditioning, then he might have maybe, lasted a little bit. I mean, he had a great career, so I can't say anything wrong with that. But it's just the difference of the early on in his career when he naturally had those legs and he just basically ran, and it was basically in a straight line, and he was able to compensate by just maybe natural ability. But later on, he was forced to stand in the pocket a lot more and trade with different fighters, and it was a much more exciting fighter, but maybe wasn't so good for him,
A lot of athletes have to look out of the box, bro. Like I'm just appreciating what you're saying here. This is not boxing, but it's just another example. Jerry Rice, football player, right? He often took ballet. Why? Because when he running routes, making those cuts, and like you were saying, ballet was excellent for that. So it's like way out of the box. Like, wow, he's a football player, he's taking ballet, and we can see the results were phenomenal. So I get you. Like sometimes you got to get out of the box. But I had a question for you. I'm noticing not even just in boxing, but a thing is catching on with athletes where they are transitioning over to plant-based or non-meat diets, whether it be pescatarian or vegan. What are the difficulties in you guys, creating eating plans for those guys? Because they have to take in a lot more, right, to kind of keep up. Is that true or no?
Yes and no. I mean, pescatarians, I think it's the easiest way to go. I mean, I think it's all personal choice. Do I prefer a vegan diet personally? I like them. I just think that it doesn't work for everybody. It's something that even just mentally it doesn't work. Just even that mental thing. It's kind of like when you sit there and have a salad bowl, or you go to a vegan restaurant, and as opposed to a steak restaurant, you're going to feel mentally more satiated. But I think ultimately it doesn't present a problem for me. It's just like, how does the guy handle it mentally? It's like, hey, we know that this is for you physically, and we know that there's a lot of benefits to it, but can you mentally handle it? Is it something that you're going to be happy doing, and we can be consistent with it? It's like, even when you're talking to somebody about doing a diet, I mean, there's how many registered diets out there? If there was one that worked, for everybody, there would only be one. And the reason it doesn't work for everybody is because everybody has a different lifestyle or different mentality behind eating and so forth. So there goes the training aspect of it. I think one of the things too is that a lot of fighters undereat, and they get into this whole thing of, man, I got to make weight, and I can't eat this, or I can't eat that, or I used to make the meal plans, and they look at me like, man, you're crazy. I can't eat that much food. Like I'm gonna be fat, by the end of camp. I said, and I would tell him, I know you feel like that right now, but that's because, once again, we're going to go back to my initial statement. The only thing your body ever has to do is adapt to any stimulus you place on it. So if the stimulus is for you to eat less and still be able to, do the amount of work, your body's going to become very efficient and burning, as little calories as possible. But what that does is it doesn't allow you to get to that other level of training, say like that window.
I think we lost you there for a second with your audio.
Are you guys?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So you have a window of your natural athletic ability, and for you to get to that 99% or 95% percentile of what you're capable of. You need to, keep your diet. You need to eat and train, and not diet and work out. Two very different things. And so a lot of people, a lot of fighters come in and say, hey man, it's too much food. I can't do this. But you got to retrain them mentally to kind of make sure that they're eating those things. And then eventually your body's going to become very adept at eating that and actually burning that much energy, because it knows it doesn't have to hold on to it. Think of, like, once again, your body only has to adapt to the stimulus. So think of prehistoric, diets where you ate right now, but you didn't know whether you're going to eat again for another 2 or 3 days. So your body was forced to hold all those calories and put them away and store them as fat, to be able to stay alive for a period of time. So our bodies are still like that. Our bodies are still, looking at, hey, if I'm getting little calories, I need to be efficient with what I got. if you're giving your body a lot of calories and the right kind of calories, your body's gonna be like, oh, I can go through this, I can burn through this with energy, and I can use this energy now because I know I'm gonna have a meal right after this anyway. So you start to have to train your body in that way, and that takes time as well. So there's a lot of little things that make big differences, especially within these camps. But I mean, these fighters really got to be on board, even outside of their actual training camps at 6 to 8 weeks.
I wanted to. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to ask you, what do you think is, when a fighter tops the ceiling of their weight, like you see some guys like Benavidez who was struggling to lose a pound or 2 or 3. What do you think is going on there, Luis, where you're seeing fighters, they're not able to shed that little nagging pound? What could it be? The eating? Could it be a little added muscle, or their body can't sweat out that pound anymore, that ounce?
I think there's a lot of things within that. I think a lot of it, and I revert back to all their off-season work, and what are they trying to compensate in, during camp in those 6 to 8 weeks for all the stuff that they're doing outside and coming into camp, maybe with too much body fat or not enough. It's like you can't come into camp, and say, I'm gonna get in shape, I'm gonna lose, all this body fat, and I'm gonna gain all this muscle. Like, you can't do all those things, it's like, and be peak performance by this day. Like, it's not gonna happen. It's like you gotta pick your battles and say, hey, I'm gonna have all my muscle mass. I'm gonna have all my strength ready, and my fat, obviously, maybe it's a little higher than I want it to be, but I can burn that through camp, and sometimes it's a positive thing because it's some stored energy, and they're maybe just not balancing all that out. But when it comes down to like the actual weigh-in itself, there may be dehydrated as fuck already, coming into the last week. And then your body at one point maybe just shuts off and says, no, I'm not letting go of another drop of water, because if I do, I'm gonna start, having kidney failure. Then there's so many things, a lot of the fighters, man, they'll wear these sweatsuits like all through camp, and they don't hydrate properly. So, your body does become kind of efficient and adapt to it to a certain extent, but the byproduct of that then means that you're not able to excrete all the toxins that your body's creating throughout camp. So imagine, like, your liver function's shot, your kidneys are shot, and at the end, of course it's not gonna, your body's not gonna want to let go of that, couple ounces of water that you still have left in there. And then body fat, you're not gonna get rid of body fat because your body doesn't have any water to then even metabolize the fat and actually take it out of your body anyways. So, you're wreaking havoc on your body at that point. So a lot of fighters, and I talk to a lot of the fighters, and they're scared about this too. This whole thing of always, drinking, plenty of water through camp, not relying on these sweatsuits, not relying on all these things. I'm okay with sweatsuits. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. You do that. You can do that maybe the last couple of days, before the weigh-in, because at that point you're doing this whole active recovery, phase of your camp, where you're allowing your body to recover, and you're trying to move as the least amount possible so that you give, like, so you don't break your body down anymore. You let it recover, but you still need to make weight. So then in that sense, throw on a sweatsuit. That way you move very little. You can probably sit there and sweat out 1.5 pounds by just sitting there. That's great. But in general, to use them throughout camp, it's terrible. But that's what they need to. So going back to that hyperhydration portion, and that we were talking about, is a lot of fighters, they enter that last week already dehydrated, because they're like, oh man, I don't want to lose, I got to lose all this weight, and if they go into the fight week 10 pounds overweight, it freaks them out. 15 pounds overweight, it freaks them out. So they're trying to get to their weight. So by dehydrating all this water, as opposed to doing the complete opposite and drinking as much water, and even 7 days away from the weigh-in is actually drink twice the amount of water that you regularly be drinking. If it was a gallon, go up to 2 gallons of water, and get your body used to just drinking, and let your body sweat it by itself. Let your body pee. Let get your body ready. Adapt to say, no, I got all this water. so that when you remove the water the last 2 days or drink very minimal water, your body's still in that state of saying, hey, I got this water, I'm hydrated, I'm good. And then you leave those cells open, ready to hydrate after the weigh-in. And then yeah, you do obviously dehydrate for 2 days, but at that point your body's already ready to receive that water. It's not like it's this period of dehydration and toxins in your body, coming from a 2-month camp, that's just the worst for you. I mean, you're actually letting your body sweat out all these toxins and letting your body recover in that phase. So then when you do have the water right after you step off that scale, your body can receive it, and at a cellular level, and not just the water that's going to be taken into your body is going to sit between your muscle and your skin, which is why a lot of the fighters start getting hit, and you see all the swelling happen.
Yeah, they're all spongy looking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They would think they're hydrated, but their muscles are not hydrated. You're not hydrated at a cellular level, so that's another different negative aspect of what some of these guys are doing to their bodies. In that sense. So I mean, it's a lot of stuff,
Yeah, it is.
I wanted to ask you one other thing. If we could just return to the cross-training topic for a second.
Right.
I'm a phys ed teacher, and with kids, there's like a big debate about how early you should specialize and like overuse injuries. I mean, in baseball, you've got kids getting Tommy John surgery because if they're only basically throwing baseballs and not doing much else. I've heard similar things about tennis. And obviously there's a lot of, burnout in sports like gymnastics where people start really young. A lot of boxers start really young. Like you hear about guys that are starting at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Yeah. Is there any risk of overuse injuries? And what are your thoughts on like cross training versus specialization?
That's the thing too. It's like everybody thinks that sports are healthy and they're not really healthy for your body, and I think you touch on something really, really important. Everybody, like now there's this pressure, because of media, because of social media, because of all these different things, for a kid to specialize in something and just kind of go in there and do repetitive. But, and maybe the people around them don't have the education behind them to take them and pull them away from that repetitive movement and work on other facets of not only that sport, but, take them away from that and do some of the prehab work, some of the rehab work that needs to be done. I mean, anytime you're doing anything repetitively, I mean, it's not really great. I mean, running's not great for your body, like in the long-term effects of it are not good for your body either. So you need to step away from that and do some of the prehab work. And I think a lot of that needs to be taught at a very young age. How to keep your body healthy. Because talking about Tommy John surgery, I was a pitcher as well, and at the age of 20 years old, I couldn't throw a baseball anymore, and I didn't opt to have Tommy John surgery because at that time, I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago, it really wasn't. I mean, it was available, but it just kind of you have the surgery, you're done. Now, I mean, obviously, guys come back and they come back even throwing harder and better, but we weren't really truly there. But what happened? I was pitching, in my regular league, and then I was pitching a Sunday league, and then I was pitching a travel ball league, and so I'd be throwing 3 games a week, and that did my arm in, and so I think all those added pressures. But if you kind of get into the prehab and mechanics of it, and mechanics should be taught a lot better. I mean, I look at Instagram all the time, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, these Insta famous people, teaching people how to do some stuff, man. And I'm like, man, like, how are you not injured? Or are you? Some of these people are injured, and they don't put that out there. They just put their gains out there, but they don't put like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm teaching you how to do this biomechanically and correctly, and and I'm hurting myself, but I don't know why I'm hurting myself, but I look good, don't I?
Yeah.
So it's like that's the other side of it.
We've got a question here in the chat from Bruce Goes. I'll put it up here. He's asking about your thoughts on dairy. You already got a plant-based question from D, who's joining us. Thank you, D. Well, what are your thoughts on I guess dairy versus non-dairy alternatives, like I guess cashew milk, almond milk, soy milk, that kind of thing?
I'm personally not a big fan of dairy. I mean, it's not something that I don't feel our bodies naturally really need.
I'm on the same page. Yeah.
And really, I mean, if you're drinking, say cow's milk or you're eating dairy, what are you trying to accomplish? Is it because you think the protein in the dairy is good for you, or is it because you think the calcium is good? There's other sources of calcium that are much more absorbable. There's other sources of protein that are more complete proteins out there that are even plant-based that are way better for you. So I think you search out all those other things. But my take on dairy is it doesn't really do anything, positive that you can't get from somewhere else. Number one, and number two, I mean, think of like the process of dairy in general, or just farming in general. That's something that you gotta really educate yourself on, before you make, some of these changes. It's just like saying, hey, is in essence eating chicken bad for you? No, it's not. But I mean, if you understand farming, then you understand why you might not want to eat that chicken.
Yeah.
But if it was in its whole natural state, it'd be a different story, but it's no longer that, and even fish nowadays, we're
man.
There's a documentary out now, talking about how much plastic is in our fish now. It's like, and all that stuff is scary. So what we've done to our environment, is affecting our diets on a daily as well. So I mean, I might kind of not answer the question, but
no, I thought that was a great answer. I mean, my own view on cow's milk is that the only milk humans should be drinking is the milk from their moms. Like the only reason we drink cow's milk and not rat's milk is because guess what? A cow is better for capitalism. Like it's a big animal that you can domesticate and attach tubes to. It's not because it's any healthier than any other anim's milk.
It's big. It's big. It's yummy, and it's dumb.
It's docile. It's big. It allows you to do whatever you want to it.
Yeah.
D, you got another question, brother?
Yeah, I got two last questions for you, Luis.
Sure.
Hey, what do you think is the most bad information a trainer does to their fighters in terms of trying to get them conditioned and make them lose weight? We saw just a couple, I think it was last month, we saw a UFC fighter, female, just faint on the scale. And we actually see a lot of that happen in the UFC. And we have seen it in the past in boxing.
I think it all goes from the onset of choosing the right weight, and don't try to push those limits. Understanding, one's body and saying, hey, this is where I feel the most natural at my weight. This is where I feel the strongest. And I don't really, I think it's different for everybody and what their experiences are. Going back to, even Canelo, I think as he moved up in weight, he's looked more explosive. And I think he's even realized that he's way more comfortable, way more athletic, and do a lot more things, could train a lot harder, could train at a different level. So it's having that honest conversation and saying, hey man, I know you're maybe a little short, but let's talk about like your natural, physiology and really play on that and use your strengths as opposed to trying to make you something you're not. It's just like, like you're telling me I'm 6'2", 230 pounds right now, but if you asked me to, hit 175 on the scale to get in the boxing ring, I probably could do it, but I probably wouldn't be very effective at it, So that's just having
see that a lot too. And I've been to gyms where I'll see a guy go in, he's 5'11", and I'll hear a trainer tell them, you got to make 140 or 147 to be effective. And I'm looking at the guy, and the guy's probably walking around at 205, and even these guys, a lot of these trainers don't know how to prep meals, or they've never even taken a class of what nutrition is put into a fighter, man. I mean, I just don't get how commissions or anybody is not regulating trainers and or other people that are coming in with a dog whistle around their neck and allowing them to, give this misinformation.
Unfortunately, we're in a sport that doesn't pay their trainers well, that doesn't pay their athletes well. Talking about, how fighters get paid and by the end of the day, they don't make good money. And so their access to information is shitty. It's just like, even I've experienced it. Like, why am I not training anybody right now? Cause I can't afford to, like I can't afford to take on some of these fighters, because it's a lot of time, it's a lot of dedication that, it's involved with it. And the pay scale isn't there. We don't pay quality people in the sport. So we rely on people that are lifers in it, that just are in there and they kind of learn, the ropes along the way. But true education and culture within the sport, it's pretty mediocre, and I look at other sports, and every other sport has, even the UFC, like some of their guys are way more educated and understand their bodies a lot better than a lot of our fighters do. And it's sad, because, it's a sport that I've always loved, but that's the main truth of it, that because the fighters aren't compensated well, and then trickles down to the trainers not being compensated well, that we fail to keep the right talent in the sport. And, and then that shows. I mean, ultimately that's right. That's the byproduct of it,
So we have another question from the chat real quick. Shoeshine Boxing, shout out to Shoeshine. They're after us here on the Leave It in the Ring network. He's asking if there are any successful keto athletes, because I know keto's a big diet right now. I've done it to like quickly drop weight myself. I don't know how effective it is to be an elite athlete, but what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know any elite athletes that swear by keto, especially on season. Your body does need the carbohydrates, to sustain, the kind of training, like going back to saying that we don't diet and work out, we eat and train, as athletes, and we got to eat towards our goals. And really being in a state of ketosis isn't something that in general is healthy, long term. It's okay if you're trying to, say get ready for, a Vegas pool party or something, for a period of time, and it's good, and it shocks your body to, drop a lot of the weight. But understand that, during ketosis, your body does produce a lot of toxins, and within that, you do dehydrate your body a lot more. So within every molecule of fat, there's 3 cells, there's 2 of water. There's every cell, there's 3 molecules, there's 2 of water, 1 of fat. So a lot of times what ends up happening is we don't necessarily lose the molecule of fat, we lose the 2 of water. And then once you start, eating with, carbohydrates, then your body then just puts that right back on. So people associated with just, there's some weight loss in there, but is it true weight loss? Like, where you're actually, fat loss? Not always, So there's some of it, but not always. And to train at a high level, I mean, your body's already, like I talked a little bit about your liver function as you get into camp and you're training at that kind of high level of being that of an alcoholic. And now throw on a poor diet that produces more toxins than your body really truly needs to handle. And I don't understand how you can get to that top level. So I would say not the way to go.
I agree. And what I just add to that myself personally, I used keto diet just for a short while to kind of lose a little bit of extra fat I had around my belly. But look, if you're going to be doing training like running, there's a reason marathon runners load up on carbs prior to their race. It's important fuel for the body. So definitely. Go ahead. You got a question, Dave?
Yeah, I got one more question for you, Luis, and I know you got to get going and stuff. I've known Victor Conte. I know you know Victor Conte, and he's got his facility is phenomenal, man. It's beautiful, and he's done with athletes and stuff. But I've always said not everything like that helps a fighter. And what I want to ask you is because Roman Tortito Gonzalez, he was a guy that was kind of written off and looked really bad, let's say 3-4 fights back, right? But he's made a major comeback. I mean, his last fight against Estrada, he looked phenomenal, conditioned. I mean, didn't gas out. And when I had a chance to speak to his trainer, Marcos Caballero was like, we just went back to the tradition things. We cut everything out about trying to put a mask on and tried all this, supplements. We just went back to road work and doing stuff like that. Is that true? Do you believe that, or is that just depending on that person's body? Could you get somebody to go back in time with their body to perform the way they used to in the past?
I think there's several aspects. We talk about, like when I touched on it like a little earlier, and I talked about the mental aspect of all this training. and who the guy is, inherently. And some guys just mentally say, hey, like if I'm going to do all this fancy stuff, it's great and all, and I'm going to do it because I listen to my trainers and my coaches and my team, but it sometimes takes that mental focus away from some of the stuff that's made them successful. So you got to look at the guys and say, hey man, you're here for a reason. What are those things? Can I identify those things that have made you successful to this point, and how can I make this better? And how can then we make this better and make it something that can increase your longevity, increase your performance now, but increase your longevity in the sport. And a lot of times that we don't ask those questions, or we get to, oh man, I'm a great trainer and I want to throw the book at you and I want to do all this great stuff and I want to show off for Instagram or the media or whatnot, but that's not the right thing for the fighter. So it could have been one of those things where it took his mental focus away from actually putting in the work. And some fighters just don't react well to that mentally or even physically. Because then there's that other aspect. Where was he training in the off season, and what kind of work was he getting in the off season? Was he getting that kind of work in the off season that then said, okay, we're doing all this explosive work, during the 8 or 6 week training camp, but off season we weren't doing any of that. So how's that going to shock your body like positively? Did you do anything that built the foundation for you to receive this work? And more likely the answer is probably going to be no. And so then they come into camp and they're maybe in okay shape, but then you're throwing the book at them and having them do all these different things and having them wear a mask and all this other stuff when it's just, I think sometimes that becomes overkill because they're not physically or mentally ready to receive that, and so you then put all this explosive work and all these different things that shock their body, and then their body never has the chance to recover, in the last week, or two prior to the fight. And then so it's just like that, like kind of like, that whole recovery thing is you just push that basketball down in the water, and then once you let it go, that ball pops up. And that's really like what all the training is like you're just pushing that ball, you're pushing the limits of your body and expecting it to then just bounce right back up and recover. But if you didn't put that groundwork down, on the off season, and you're doing that to that basketball, like, probably that ball's going to pop at one point, and it's not going to come back. He maybe felt great a week or two after the fight, because he had time to recover and relax, but maybe for a fight, it wasn't happening for him, So there's a lot of aspects to it. I'd have to sit there and really analyze everything that he does, but I would say just from a standpoint, it's either a mental block, where he wasn't putting in the work, like he should. He was just doing what they told him because that's what was on the schedule for that day, right? Or he just wasn't prepped for his body to receive that work,
Well, there you go, Luis Garcia, strength and conditioning coach. Has been a friend with Leaving the Ring, for a very long time. I'm taking a trip to Vegas. I'm going to be out there for a whole week, and then I was going to swing through LA, brother. Maybe we can get together or something, and chop it up again.
Yeah, man, come out, man. And if there's any fighters out there, I recently started, taking some fighters out on the sand every Saturday and kind of just donating my time. Every Saturday morning, try to go out to Santa Monica and do some of the sand work, some of the sand drills that I think have been a staple of, some of my training camps. So if any fighters out there want to come and join, I'm not trying to charge anybody. Just come out there and learn. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And, it's just opening up, give back a little bit to the sport that I think is giving me so much,
You got the little man out there with you running?
Yeah,
doing some work, yeah.
He goes out there, man. He'd probably give everybody a run for their money, man. He wears me out, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Luis. Luis Garcia, ladies and gentlemen. Muchísimas gracias, Luis.
Thank you, guys, man. Thank you guys for having me, and have a blessed day, guys.
You too, brother. Luis Garcia. All right, that was awesome, man. And D, thank you for staying on for the ride. You were like mid-sentence when Luis came into the I'm happy. Thank you for staying on. There were two other things I kind of wanted to go over real quick to get your thoughts on, Dave, and maybe we could get D's thoughts. I wanted to ask you about Andrade Williams, which is taking place today. I'm sorry, this weekend. And then what your thoughts on Tony Harrison and his kind of future at the 154-pound division. There's that Charlo fight that's been agreed to with Castano. I'm excited about that. So,
real quick. Yeah. Now, because I followed Jamel, on Instagram and Twitter.
Mhm.
Jamel said it's all crap.
Really?
He actually he came out with a post. He came out with a post on Instagram and Twitter, and he said, "Listen, don't listen to these articles. We have not even spoken yet."
Well, there you go. The reports came out of Argentina, so I guess you got to take that with a grain of salt. So Andrade Williams, Dave, and the obviously the comeback of Tony Harrison.
I'm excited about Tony Harrison. I'm glad that he's back. His last outing, I thought he was fighting. He was fighting a great fight. And unfortunately, Charlo was able to creep back into it. And so, I mean, I don't know anybody that's written off Tony yet. Do you know anybody that's written him out yet? I mean,
I'm a big fan of Super Bad Harrison, bro. I'm a big fan. And the thing is, he lost his father, trainer. This is going to be, I believe, his first fight since he lost his father, trainer. So there's that kind of important story as well. I'm looking forward to seeing him on Saturday. What about you, D? Before I let you go,
I am definitely looking forward to Tony Harrison. You know what I think about Tony Harrison, and a lot of people may not agree with this, but pure boxer, I don't think there's another boxer at 154 that's a better pure boxer than him.
Yeah,
I really don't. You see, his issue is his chin. He does have chin issues, but just look at him box. I don't think no one else is boxing better than him. I don't. I think he's a phenomenal boxer. He just has chin issues. Tony's tall too. He's a lot taller than people believe he is. Like 6'1", 6'2". You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I think he's going to beat the hell out of Brian Perella. I'll tell you that.
Same. G Funky's asking if you think he's a better pure boxer than Lara, who's also at 154.
No, yes, because no.
Laura's kind of stepped down a little bit.
Yeah, he's declined. He's declined.
Yeah, he's declined.
Not only that, G Funky, Lara's at 160 now.
There you go. So, D, I'm gonna let you go, but thank you for joining us. You are an extended member of the Leave It in the Ring family. Always a pleasure to have you on the lives at Fives. And thank you. I
got to get back over there too, bro. I've been missing it. And Dave and Emil, thanks for having me on this one too, bro. I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely, bro.
100%, bro. Tuesday, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, fam.
I wouldn't say Harrison is chinny, man. I mean, he's been knocked out by some hard punchers. Hurd, Charlo, even Nelson. Is a decent puncher. I think I think he's skillful. I think that it's the crop of guys. Unfortunately, this is what you get when you fight the best that are available in your division. And the best that are available in the division are actually guys that are worth talking about, right? Hurd, I don't know where he's MIA, but he fought, Harrison fought Hurd when he was considered the monster at 154. He was the boogeyman,
Yeah, 100%. And look, we saw Israel Madrimov the other day. I think it was 2 Saturdays ago out there in Uzbekistan. Obviously, people who listen to this show know that I'm a huge fan of Tim Tszyu and see big things in that kid's future. And yeah, Brian Castano, that's a solid dude too. I was actually hoping we'd see Tim Tszyu, Brian Castano. I love that come forward style that he has, and I love the sniper style that Tim Tszyu's inherited from his dad. Keeping that rangefinder jab and that boom, that right hand.
Right. There's still a lot to be answered though from Tim Tszyu.
I agree.
I know you're on that. I know you're on that wagon, that train with him and stuff. And I do like that kid a lot, but I'm still a bit reserved because they're moving them very good, and certain things that they're doing with them, it may seem to be a little better than what he really is just at the moment. I think if they rush him too quick and put him in with like a Castano or somebody in those kind of resume, I think we're gonna get some stuff revealed and exposed by Tim Tszyu because he might not be ready for that level just yet. I think he's close. I think he's close, but I think he's about 2 or 3 fights before I say we start talking about him jumping up and getting a world title.
No, I agree with you. I think the track that he's on is a great track. I feel like the Jeff Horn fight was at the appropriate time. And I felt like the Dennis Hogan fight was also at an appropriate time.
Yeah, definitely. He looked phenomenal in that fight with Dennis Hogan. Dennis didn't seem like he was in the fight ever.
He wasn't quite the menace when he met Tim Tszyu, that's for sure, Dennis Hogan. So lastly, Dave, Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, WBO champ, 160 pounds, doesn't seem to be able to get a big fight with top guys out there, whether it's Charlo, Jamal, whether it's Triple G, whether it's Canelo. These are the guys that he wants. Even the Billy Joe Saunders, that fight fell through and he hasn't been able to make it happen again. What are your thoughts on Boo Boo? He's taking on a rugged guy in Liam Williams out of Wales. You looking forward to this fight? What are your thoughts on Boo Boo and the way that his career is going?
I'm not looking forward to the fight, but I'm going to take the fight. And what I mean by that is that, Boo Boo is in no position of saying no to anything. He needs to take on whatever's coming. Liam what he needs to do is basically shut down Andrade's case of being avoided. And the way he does that is being rugged, being rough, cutting the ring off, cornering him, forcing him to fight. I like Boo Boo. Is he the cleanest looking boxer at the 160 division? No, he's got flaws, but he does carry some decent power to keep you humble.
He does.
I know a lot of folks are like, he doesn't have any power. He does. I mean, when he turns it on and he sits all those punches, he can hurt you. He's got good footwork. He doesn't have the greatest footwork. He's a good counter puncher. Does he have the most exciting style? No. But is he the most boring style? For some, yes. For me, no, not really. But I'm going to take what's getting served to him at the moment because, like you said, it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to mix it up with this kid. And I think what everybody's been waiting for that are these other guys that have been mentioned to fight Andrade. Those guys are pretty much waiting for Andrade to lose to anybody so they can go back and say, you see, that's why we don't want to fight him. And the fans would say, that's why these guys didn't want to fight him. He's not that special. He's not that good. So that's for Liam to prove that point, to go out there and capitalize on that point. But I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Regardless of what, Andrade doesn't look like he's taken a step back at all. It doesn't look like he's declined. He's still staying kind of fresh. Why? Because he's not as active. But as we know, inactivity can sometimes, can hit you back pretty hard, what can make you look old overnight. Or maybe Andrade's going in there, not taking this guy serious. We see this time and time again, especially in this day of age of boxing. Fighters tend to sleep on their opponents because they've been looking at the bigger prize that's up ahead, and they're not looking at the actual physical body that's going to be in front of them. Could that happen with Andrade? It could. He's only human, but I haven't seen it happen to him yet.
Yeah, and he does have the ability to kind of shut out his opponents. I think what he really needs is a signature win where he scores kind of a brutal knockout. I think that will kind of get people clamoring for it. He does have punching power. We've seen him knock down guys with shots. We just haven't really seen him put guys away recently anyways. If he could get that stoppage of Liam Williams, who is a rough and rugged guy, he's going to make a statement for himself. Liam Williams does have a good trainer behind him in Brendan Ingle. They do get good sparring out there in Sheffield, where I know Brendan Ingle has his gym. It's also the home of the Institute of Sport, where guys like Carl Frost used to train. That's where AJ trains. So they got access to the sparring. It's going to be also interesting to see the COVID factor and how that plays into things, inactivity and all that. Being in a bubble, as we've seen, has caused people challenges. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. I'm going to watch it, and we'll see what happens, Dave.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to expect. Look, it's a showcase fight. It's a keep busy fight. But Liam, like you just mentioned right now, is coming out of a tough part, a traditional part of boxing. And it's really up to him. To me, it lies up to him and what game plan they worked on and what they were looking at of Andrade, what they could capitalize. Like I said, with Conor Benn, was impressive about Conor Benn is Ben with Conor Benn is that he went out there and he made sure that the fight didn't even start. And that's what Liam's got to do. He's got to go out there, jump on him immediately. See if Andrade's cold. See if he's up to get it in there to face him. See whether or not Andrade took him serious. That's what he's got to do. That's his job. So we'll see Saturday night.
Yeah, and as Shoeshine says, Liam's on a KO streak. He absolutely is. So look, Shoeshine Boxing tonight. Check it out. Home of the Shoeshine podcast with Dave from the 408 and my man Philly Drew Evo. Check that out. 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. This has been the Leave It in the Ring show. Shout out to everybody. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit the notification button. Link is there in the description box. Please do hit that before you leave our live show. Thank you to everybody who's been here. LT Boxing. Thank you, G Funky, Mad Chad out of Maine. Thank you for joining us. JC Brusco's Ringside Reporter Live was here with us. That's none other than Eric Lorta, I believe. And everyone who showed us some love today, big up to you guys. Dave, you got any last thoughts?
No, man. Just enjoy the weekend. Don't drink and drive because you will spill your beer.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.